All right, welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining us. So my name is Julio Briones, and I'm here with the Briones Consulting Group, and we're doing this quick Facebook Live to talk to you a little bit about retention and recruitment. And actually, we're specifically doing this to talk about what is the true cost of caregiver turnover. Now, here's the thing. We've all heard about, that magic number. It's about $2,500, $2,600, depending on which study you read, for caregiver turnover. So what that essentially means is if you are looking at, for example, if you have a large agency and you hire 100 caregivers, and those 100 caregivers, they leave for whatever reason throughout the course of the year, and you have to hire another 100 caregivers to repeat them. According to that study, you're spending about $50,000 worth of turnover every year. That's a ridiculous number. Hey, it's not a wrong number. And as we're going to see here shortly, that number is actually potentially very low. Okay, and where all of this comes from, it's that the calculation has a number of different factors that are involved, and some of them are going to be specific to your agency. And now, while your numbers might be lower, other numbers might be a little bit higher. So first, let's before we get started, I'm just going to go ahead and give a quick plug here. We have an upcoming training this Saturday, the 9th. All right. It's called Piecing It Together, Recruitment and Retention, where we're going to talk about the real cost of caregiver turnover. We're going to talk about how your why can effectively, help attract more caregivers and reduce your turnover rate. Also, what are the elements of a truly successful recruitment ad? All right, and we're going to discuss some low cost, really high return strategies you can implement today on social media that will help improve your retention and in your recruitment, and also how to increase that horrible caregiver no-show to your interviews. We're going to talk about what is the cadence and sequence that you need to do, and a few tips to really reduce that no-show rate, and how to even get caregivers that are coming from a little farther away. And as a bonus, we're going to go through how to put together an engaging employee of the month program that's actually going to help you not just increase retention, which means a reduced cost of caregiver turnover, but we are also going to talk about how it can help you increase your business and increase your recruitment efforts. All right. So, and as with any other training, a lot of these materials, all of these materials will be available for download, and will be sent to you at the end of the workshop, and what you'll need to work on the workshop will be provided. So let's go ahead and let's look at one of the tools we're going to be going over and that you'll be receiving during this workshop here. And by the way, I'm sorry, the cost of the workshop is $199, which is really, this is our first experiment on a workshop, so we're giving it out at a lower cost than if you were to go through a assessment and implementation package with us. All right, so let's go through it here. So this here is a tool that we've developed that will actually help us calculate caregiver costs. Now, we're using some industry averages in order to come up with this, but let's take a look here. Let's say our hourly wage, we are paying, say, the let's say we're paying an average of, just to go high, about $13 per hour. Okay. And let's say we've got a pretty successful business, and we have managed to put our caregivers to work an average of 32 hours a week. Okay. That means that our caregivers are making about $21,632 over the course of the year. And they are, and it's, let's just go with 20% burden. It can be as low as 13%, as high as 30%. It depends on the state you're in. This includes payroll taxes, includes any taxes to the federal government, workman's comp, things like that. I'm just using an estimate of 20% for the purpose of this exercise, which brings it down to it costing, based on 258 working days, which is 5 days a week, 4.3 weeks in a month, 12 months in a year. Okay, so basically it's 20 days, 22 days a month that they're working, if, on average, to do this. It's going to cost about $100 a day. All right, so this means that it's going to cost us, for each shift that they miss, about $200. All right, so if this position is vacant, let's say caregiver calls out, or because a caregiver quit, you're missing a number of shifts. Let's say that it ends up costing you 4 shifts. That means you've spent $800. You've lost $800 worth of revenue. That's already a lot of money that we're starting to lose out on. So if we have a recruiter on staff, okay, and the recruiter is making, just for argument's sake, we'll go with an industry average of, let's say, $40,000 per year. Okay, that means they're making about $20 an hour. So based on 7.5 hours per day, 258 working days. Okay, it's going to take about 2 hours to exit this person out, which means about $41. Okay, and let's just say that, with copies and fees and everything else, let's say it costs us an extra $50, in whatever miscellaneous expenses to do this. So now, how long will it actually take us to screen and interview and refill this position? Well, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. The way the job market is today, at this point in time, it's going to take roughly 160 hours for you to hire 1 to 2 caregivers. Okay, that means between the time it takes to post, review, to pre-screen, review, interview, and get everybody on board and hired and processed in, it's going to be about 160 hours, meaning 40 hours a week. And if you're hiring an average of 1 caregiver a month, that's what it's going to be. So let's go with that you're hiring 2 caregivers a month. Let's just say you're just doing an amazing job. You might be doing more. I'm not saying you're not. This is why you have to figure this out based on your specific numbers. All right, but let's just go with, it's going to take 60 hours worth of screening and 20 hours worth of interviews before you hire 1 caregiver. Okay, so total of 80 hours, which is 2 caregivers a month. Okay, and now I've seen people spending as much as $3,000 or $4,000 in advertising. So we're just going to go with what I would normally recommend on spending on ads, which will be about $1,200 a month. All right, that's really about where I would cap it off at. And if you implement some strategies, this number is actually significantly lower. With the right strategies in place, your advertising costs should only be about $600 a month. All right, so let's say new hire and other administration costs. So this is really going to be state dependent. Some states only require minimal background checks and fingerprinting and things of that nature. And it can be, I've seen these costs go as low as $70 per caregiver, but I've also seen certain states that require some pretty intense background checks that have a lot of requirements, and I've seen this go up as high as $250 to $300 per caregiver. So let's just go and split the difference somewhere, and we'll call it $100 even. Okay. So now your RN, your manager, whoever it is responsible to do your onboarding, let's just assume that it's going to be one of your schedulers. And let's just say that they're also making about $20 an hour, depending on where you are. I know this number may be a little high, maybe a little low. It really depends on the agency. I've seen senior schedulers or office managers make as high as $70,000, $80,000 a year. I've also seen them get paid as low as $30,000 a year. So again, this will depend on you. We're going to split the difference. We're going to call it 40,000 again, just to, call it somewhere in the middle there. And, which means that their daily rate is about $155. So on average, it's going to take a minimum of 3 days to get everybody paperwork onboarded, the background check to come back, do the orientation, all of this other wonderfulness. So let's go with 3 days here. And now other training costs, this means the cost of in-services, initial training, and the training platforms. Now, we do have a couple of training platforms that we recommend that are lower cost and just fantastic, really. We refer people to them. We like them, but other people use different platforms as well. So I've seen it range from an average of from as low as $10 per caregiver per month to as much as $150 per caregiver per month. So we're just going to go with like $30 just because. Okay, we'll call it a $30 for other training costs. We also have to consider like photocopies and things of that nature that you may consume during your in-service or your platform, because some states require you to do everything on paper, and then there's the mailing expense and everything else. So let's just go with an average of $30 per caregiver for the course of the training while they're onboarding. And now comes an interesting calculation. How many days does it take for your caregivers to start firing on all cylinders? All right, see, this is very, very important to understand, because your caregivers, some will perform better than others. Now, in average, it will take about 5 days for your caregiver to operate at 100%. That means, by the time they get used to the routine, they come in, they get used to working with the client, you guys get the bugs worked out, their personality, your personality, it really depends. Okay. So replacing a caregiver. So let's just say 3 days, just for the sake of this, which means it's going to cost you about $150 of, it's not actual expense, it's of lost productivity. Okay. So what does this all mean? This means that if you're following this specific company, which is, again, as we talked, we're not even talking about a lot. We're looking at a $4,446 true cost of turnover. All right, this means that between covering the position, cost to hire the replacement, what it's actually costing you in missed shifts because the position is not filled, and new hire training and productivity. Now, again, this number could change dramatically. Like, let's just say you're not spending $1,200 a month in advertising. Let's just say you're spending $500 a month. All right, you're still looking at $3,700. Okay, we're still looking at a large number, in order to do this. So let's even take it further. Let's just say that you're amazing and you have such a great pool of caregivers that are just drop everything to go and work for you. Okay, you're still looking at, let's just look at, say you can fill the position in 1 day. You're just amazing. you're still looking at a $3,100 expense. All right. So there's only a couple of ways that you're going to actually improve this number. And this is really going to come down to, you're either going to increase your retention. All right. So this way you're minimizing the turnover. All right. Because if a caregiver stays with you longer, then you have lower opportunity, lower expense, because it's less often that you're spending this $3,000 in this particular example. All right. And now, if you are, the other way to do this is to increase your recruitment so that you reduce the amount of time that your positions are vacant and that your training period is. So you're going to lose money one way or the other. Okay. So it's, where do you want to spend it? We always talk about here at Brion's Consulting Group that if you're spending this much money, isn't it better to spend about half of this on a solid retention program? This way you can keep your caregivers longer and reduce your expense. Because let's take a look at something else here. Let's say you are only offering 25 hours a week. Let's just for argument's sake, let's just bring this number down. You're still looking at $3,000 to lose a caregiver. But now let's use some realistic numbers here. All right, I've had a bunch of clients where I do these, our company, we do audits of, either on site or virtual, depending on where you are, because because of COVID, we take a lot of geography into account. And let's just use some realistic numbers that we have seen. First, very few people are paying $13 an hour. All right, so we're looking at right away an expense of, we're first of all looking at an expense of, the average I've seen is about $16 an hour. All right, and people have gotten, especially in today's age, now with everything going on with COVID and people are having a hard time filling positions. So I've seen caregivers actually getting their 40 hours a week. So if we're doing an average of $16 an hour, 40 hours a week, okay, that's $33,000 a year. Okay, so now let's look at what that is realistically costing you. $3,300. Okay, it's $3,300 to for bad retention. Okay, and this is assuming you're only doing 1 day to keep the position vacant. I have seen this in a number of agencies across the country, that the average for a vacant position, in other words, the total number of shifts missed as a direct result of an instability in the caregiver retention and recruitment. Okay, the average number is actually about 4 shifts that are missed. Okay, so if this is closer to a realistic scenario, even if we bring this number down, let's say you just have amazing caregivers that they start firing on all cylinders right away, and in 1 day, you're still looking at a $4,000 cost of turnover, which is almost 80% higher than what the average is. Now, those averages that they're talking about, that $2,600, they're taking a lot of things into account. And please remember, when those numbers come up, they are taking into account private pay as well as the Medicaid agencies or state payer source agencies. And those rates are different because they're fixed on the payout, and therefore the amount of money, the wages are kind of controlled by the state, because you can't pay someone $17 an hour if the state's only paying you 15. Just as an example, not saying that that's reality anywhere, even though it might very well be in a few places. All right, so please keep in mind, caregiver turnover is a big deal. And if you want to learn more about how we can help you, and a few tips at a lower cost than what we normally charge to do these classes live, please The link is below. Visit us here, register. It says it's a webinar. It's not. It is a virtual workshop. Okay, because we're hosting it through Zoom, we are kind of at their mercy, and this is how the platform lists it. All right, so it's October 9th. That's Saturday. So this way you guys have enough time, you'll have a little more freedom to watch the whole thing. And it's at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. All right, and again, you'll be receiving the caregiver turnover cost calculator and a lot of other stuff, including some sample ads. You'll be receiving our roadmap on how to host and how to hold a successful, highly engaging employee of the month program that will help with your retention, recruitment, and it'll actually increase your client loyalty. And in some cases, it can help you with your sales process and referrals. All right, so join us. It's $199, and this training will be right around 3 hours. All right, so we look forward to seeing you guys. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to give us a like. It really helps the algorithm out. Thanks a lot. We'll talk soon.